They will go to war down into turn number 1 for the first race of the weekend. A big hi to our Australian viewers watching the coverage on Speed TV. And just in the back of that shot, Shane Drake, you can see some issues with the Paul Manual Oryx Commodore. Shay Davies at the wheel, and we're hearing reports of a possible split oil cooler.
Yeah, that's not a good start, and the man from the Gold Coast, Shay Davies, at the wheel of that number 15 Oryx Commodore, as we get a bit of a wave from the girls at the front of the grid.
Shane Van Gisbergen, new helmet paint job for the weekend. Warren Lynn and his team at Isigner to put that helmet together in between previous round at Taupo and here. All right, let's have a look at the track layout here at Hampton Downs as we get ready for race number 1.
Well, 2.7 kilometres long, 6 corners, top speed of 260 k's, as low as 60 k's in some corners, and a lot of elevation changes at this track. It's surrounded by apartments on the outside of the circuit, and Greg Murphy is the man with the fastest lap here of 104.178, so a magic circuit.
Qualifying record at a 103.2 set by Ant Pedersen back here over a year ago, February 2013. And the fastest qualifying time that we have seen here today was a 104.2 from this driver, Shane Van Gisbergen. Just getting comfortable in the seat of the Smeg Racing Commodore. So they're about a second slower than what we've seen here as the fastest laps in the past, just highlighting the track has been a little bit green and a little bit dusty and, well, just basically slow, Shane.
Well, in practice and qualifying these cars, and this man here has been all over the show. The number 1 Jack Perkins car has really struggled, and likewise a number of other guys did as well. As we look at the front of the grid, Shane Van Gisbergen and Simon Evans off the pole, and alongside him Andre Heimgartner and Paul Morris. Shay Davies and Paul Manuel, row 2, alongside Jack Perkins and Greg Murphy.
Then we go back out of position 5, and Pedersen and Johnny Reid Pedersen will start the number 96 machine. Cam Waters and Mitch Cunningham. Cam Waters, the young Australian, starting that car. Fogg and D'Alberto up next off grid 7 alongside Moore and Slade, and Moore will start the number 10.
Road number 5, and it's a new man back again, Andrew Wade alongside Sean Varney, and grid position 10 is Mark Gibson and John McIntyre. Tim Edgell and Steve Owen out of grid 11, and Chris Hanley and the new man Gene Rollinson, who comes back after a couple of years.
On board with Shane Van Gisbergen. Won his 6th pole, tying him with Ant Pedersen with the all-time pole winners. The BNT NZ SuperTourers. On board with Jack Perkins. As Shane said, they just have struggled a little bit over the weekend. I tell you what, Jack Perkins' qualifying was quite stunning to watch. He was really having to manhandle the Mike Pero number 1. Mark Gibson, the 3rd of our onboard camera systems in the Blackwood Protector Ford, and he is sharing that obviously with John McIntyre. So Shane Van Gisbergen leading them around. So the green light, bottom right-hand side of the screen as you look at the car, is the co-driver light. So Shane Van Gisbergen, the co-driver. Andre Heimgartner is the main driver. He will start the number 22 Hydrolink Holden. Fresh off an impressive performance at Bathurst with Ant Pedersen in the Super Black Racing Ford.
Actually, Jamie, there's a real mixture of co-drivers and main drivers that have been put together for race 1. And the teams obviously get to choose which driver they allocate and what time.
Based off the 2 qualifying sessions, yep.
It's a bit of a mixed bag of lollies, isn't it? So,
yeah, it is.
But we've got Heimgartner there, obviously, that is the on the front row, and then we go back to Ant Pedersen, who decided to start. Angus Fogg, Moore, Mark Gibson, Edgell, and Hanley are all decided to start as well. So good little mix-up here of co-drivers and mains.
And like Taupo, the Smeg Holden will start off the pole for both races because Simon Evans topped the main drivers qualifying session, his first ever pole in the BNT NZ SuperTourers. Shane Van Gisbergen 6th, as I said, tying him with Ant Pedersen. You go back to Scott McLaughlin with 5 poles, Greg Murphy with 4. So the SsangYong safety car leading this field around. We are looking to go green, 30 laps. Compulsory pit stop window open between laps 16 and 20. No refuelling in race 1. Refuelling will come into action for races 2 and 3. Shane Van Gisbergen leads the field out of the Hankook sweeper, up the hill towards the apartments for the race start. 30 laps at Hampton Downs. Van Gisbergen off the pole, Heimgartner from 2. Shea Davies from 3. They had some issues pre-race underneath the hood of that car. Jack Perkins starting the number 1, Mike Perro Holden out of position 4.
Perkins and Davies really sitting back there trying to get a run to the start. Not hard up the... whoa, look at that. Is that Varney?
Andrew Waite, the co-driver in that car, got a fantastic start. Van Gisbergen will lead them down into turn number 1. As Cam Waters goes gardening in the number 32, cutting a construction forward. Heimgartner with a big brake lock up in behind Van Gisbergen.
He was very lucky not to click Van Gisbergen.
Perkins just got run off line there side by side with the Pedersen. Reed number 96, J. Russell Ford. Pedersen starting that machine. Again, green light in the window, his co-driver in the car.
Well, Andrew Waite, who really struggled in qualifying, got caught up in an incident that involved Johnny Reed. So it burnt him hard. Perkins down the inside of Pedersen on board here with the Mike Perro number 1. Just struggling for traction. Out of the BNT hairpin. Van Gisbergen, Heimgartner, Davies, Perkins, Pedersen. And I think the next car in the queue was Angus Fogg. Perkins with a big handful of understeer mid-corner through the Hankook sweeper. That start lap 2 of 30. That's what they were fighting in his practice session, Jamie. Pedersen down the inside, and that is Waters down the inside. Big moves on that one. Perkins has gone a bit wide. Andrew Waite. Now Waite started out of position 9, and he is up into the 6th position. That'll be back to 7th now. Good move by Ant Pedersen. He backed that, oh, he's still side by side. Contact, side by side contact with Perkins. Pedersen and Perkins, Ford versus Holden. Pedersen's going to keep his nose clean here as Waters, who loves fighting, is now hot on the back of the 96 car. Shane, I watched him at Bathurst, paired with Jack Perkins, and in the development series. Really impressive was this young Australian. Came to New Zealand with a bit of a, well, not attitude, but, you know, he came here as a bit of a young gun and didn't really care about if anything went on. He was fast. Back on board over the back boot lid of the Perkins Murphy number 1. That car was really a handful in qualifying session 1. Heimgartner looking to go down the inside of Van Gisbergen. First of the flying laps, Van Gisbergen lost a little bit of time. Heimgartner was half a second quicker, so maybe a small mistake from Van Gisbergen over the backside of the circuit. So Heimgartner's trying to stay with him. Van Gisbergen, fresh from a win and a 5th on the Gold Coast, disappointed with the 5th place with that drive-through penalty. So we arrived in New Zealand on a bit of a mission here off the back of 2 race wins at Taupo and a 3rd place finish, leading the championship after round number 1 at Taupo. Back on board with Van Gisbergen. And number 22, Commodore of Andre Heimgartner, looking very strong. He's right in the back of that car. This could be a go here. He is. Down into the Hankook sweeper. Has he got the inside line? Side by side, because he's going to get in the rough stuff. He cuts it back. He's looking to cross him over. Looking to cross him over as they head up the hill, and Van Gisbergen's got the job done. Can he stay there? Heimgartner up over the top of the hill. Side by side. Van Gisbergen versus Heimgartner. Fantastic stuff. Who's going to do the business into here? Heimie thinks better of it, pulls it, he's going to pull it back in tight. Shea Davies back in the 3rd position in the Oryx Holden. Perkins, Pedersen, Waters, Waite, Moore. Shane Van Gisbergen's mirrors full of yellow and black Holden. Early stages of this first race at Hampton Downs. The TR Group Waikato 400 weekend, round 2, the BNT NZ SuperTourers. Gisbergen certainly under some pressure. That's allowing Davies just to close the gap. He was a couple of tenths quicker than the 2 in front of him. Got Mark Pedersen again down in pit lane with us. Mark, very, very hot conditions for this first race, similar to what we saw in the 2nd qualifying session.
Yeah, it's probably more in line with the 1st qualifying session, Jamie. The track condition, track temp's 28 degrees, which is very much in line. But guys, you've got to keep an eye on the 3rd place car. Paul Manuel. That car had an oil leak on the dummy grid, and what they actually done is they had to do a very local Kiwiana, as Paul said himself, repair on that. They said it's going to be a testament to see if the oil coil will stay together or not.
Yes. Notice the silicon there, Mork. Walked away with the silicon bottle.
You only saw half of it, Shane, because they actually had hammers trying to pin over where it was leaking from. They had the silicon gun. They got some washers and some race tape and everything trying to plug the gap. So it will be an absolute miracle if it does hold together.
Listen, just back to the fight up front, Mork. Could we be seeing the Smeed car and the hydraulic car running a bit of a different tyre pressure strategy here? Because Heimgartner is pretty quick.
I think it's just a good old-fashioned scrap, Shane, to be honest with you. We're actually down in the Heimgartner pit now, and Paul Morris is already kitted up, ready to go. So, look, I think they're going to stretch these guys for as long as they can. In the pit window, keep in mind the pit window is from lap 16, lap 20 in this 30-lap race. So, either way, it's going to be a royal battle, isn't it?
Absolutely. Paul Morris, of course, recent Bathurst winner. Heimgartner's got a run here on Van Gisbergen again. Down the inside, down into turn one, rush security.
Oh, Van Gisbergen's got very, very deep.
Just about did not get that turned in. Could he be vulnerable now to Shay Davies? Certainly hasn't got that early race pace that we saw in Taupo. In very, very different conditions though, lads.
We don't want to go, these guys don't want to go too far offline. As you just saw, Van Gisbergen was only a car width out. This track is very, very green. There's been a fair bit of rain here in Auckland and not a lot of competition. So this is really a bit of an opener for not only a number of other series here running this weekend, but also Hampton Downs.
Van Gisbergen losing a lot of ground down there at the BNT Hampton. Really struggled to get it through. Shay Davies right there with him. Perkins, Patterson, back to Cam Waters. And behind Waters, Andrew Waite, Richard Moore in the Mike Perro number 10 to Mitchell, Mark Gibson and Chris Hanley completing the field of 12 for race number 1 here at Hampton Downs. Looking at the lap times, last lap for Heimgartner, a 105.0, fastest lap for the race. Van Gisbergen, a 105.7. 105.5 for Davies, 105.5 for Perkins. So Heimgartner has got express pace in these early laps. Almost looked like Van Gisbergen was holding him up a little bit. Perkins with a big slide. Exit oversteer out of turn number 2 on the approach to 3. And around goes the Property Tutors Holden. Angus Fogg was running in the 9th position.
Well, he's got a bit of a stall going on. He's away now. He had a bit of an off in the similar sort of place. Here's a replay. Oh, he gets a bit of a nudge from Tim Edgell.
And the Chester's Holden, that was just a little bit awkward. I think Edgell might have been just off the edge of the track. So things just starting to settle down now, but really impressed with Heimgartner's opening speed here at the start of the first race. Back on board with Perkins. 2 pretty solid runs. The last of the 2 Pertec Enduro V8 Supercar races.
It's looking very, very laid back in that car of Murphy's. It must be just a little bit shorter than Murph.
Totally different driving style. There's Van Gisbergen. He's just rocked in a 4.9. A 104.9 for the Giz. So he's just picked his pace back up.
See, there's just a bit of a lack of grip in that corner, and he'll potentially have a little nose down here. His half puts it in, got to be careful.
Heimgartner running wide. I think Van Gisbergen just pinched some momentum there. He's going to launch it down the inside, down into the BNT hairpin, and gets the job done.
He wants that place in a hurry, doesn't he?
Davies static and behind them, lost half a second to the 2, but Shane Van Gisbergen fastest lap of the race at 104.9. Heimgartner pulls up alongside. Good exit speed down out of the hairpin. I think the Smeg Commodore is just struggling for drive down maybe out of the hairpin. But this is a fantastic opening sequence. Lap 8 of 30, pit window due at lap 16, between 16 and 20 for the compulsory driver change. Van Gisbergen to hand over to Simon Evans. Heimgartner will hand over to Paul Morris. On board with the Giz. Little twitch there from Heimgartner. 5.8 from Van Gisbergen, a 6.3 from Heimgartner. They were a second slower as Paul Morris looks on with that distinctive flowery paint job. How happy was he to win Bathurst, considering the dramas they had early race. Unbelievable result for Chaz Mostert and Paul Morris.
It's great to have him here. He seems quite relaxed. Someone pitches a break heading into turn 5.
Yeah, I think
someone else.
Van Gisbergen and that might have been Davies and behind them.
problems there with that Shay Davies. He's actually doing a good job there and pulling that number 15 closer.
Well, he was nearly a second quicker than the 2 leaders on the previous lap, who were still sort of jostling together there. Jack Perkins on a similar lap speed. Pedersen at a 5.2, a 10th quicker. Cameron Waters' last lap was about half a second down on that. Van Gisbergen a little bit more in control now. See what this lap rolls out at. A 4.9 again and a 5.5 for Heimgartner. He's just taken 6 tenths out of Andre Heimgartner. Look at that gap.
Hey guys, have a bit of an update for you on the Evans Van Gisbergen car. We went down and asked them any problems, and they said no, everything's going to plan. And the next minute they grab a whole lot of tyre pressure gauges, and the pit crew get pitted up. So I'm just assuming that's what's happened, is maybe they have set the tyre pressures a little bit high, and they got quite hot in the course of battle. And so Shane slowed down for a couple of laps, and as we all know, that only takes 2 laps for these tyres to recover, and probably that's what's given them the ability to have another crack at Andre. And
that's one of the things with these Hankook slick tyres. They are very durable and they are quite forgiving. You can pick up a little flat spot and you can get them back, and there's a little lock up there for the J.A. Russell Ford. Van Pedersen in behind Jack Perkins. So Van Gisbergen, Heimgartner, Davies, Perkins, Pedersen, Waters, your top 6. Within 6 laps of the pit window opening, and just a 4-lap window to get that compulsory driver change done. And Mark, we saw at Taupo there was still quite a bit of difference time-wise between the fastest and the slowest teams with the driver changes.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see exactly the same here, because what's interesting now, though, is every driver is ready to go except for Murph. Murph's just sitting back with his sunglasses on looking at the monitor. But we, you know, we definitely saw a big change in the speed of the driver change from the first race to the last race down at Taupo, and you know, you can't help but think once again it's going to happen here.
On board with Mark Gibson in the 10th position.
For car 14, breach of start procedure. Car 14.
Just hearing on race radio that Andrew Waite has been pinged for jumping the start, so they've obviously been having a close look at that, so he's going to receive a
10-second penalty.
Time penalty at the end of this race.
May be able to recover that with a good pit stop, and that makes it even more crucial.
Well, he's up there, currently up in the 8th position as we go on board with Mark Gibson. Black was protected, number 47.
Fastest lap of the race, last lap for Van Gisbergen at a 4.8. He's got a 1.2 second advantage over Heimgartner. Van Gisbergen's last lap of 4.8, a 4.9. He's the only driver in the 4s. Heimgartner loses another half second, a 5.6. Davies on a similar pace at 5.6, Perkins at 5.7. Van Gisbergen, the only driver in the high 4s. Current lap record of 104.178 set by Greg Murphy, February 2013. Obviously the track was pretty quick that weekend now.
Just hearing that Andrew Waite is in the pit lane. Quite sure what's going on with that number 14 car. We'll update you as soon as we can.
Well, they didn't get given a drive-through penalty. 10-second penalty, but the car is in pit lane, I think, with another issue. It certainly wasn't a drive-through penalty, it was a post-race 10-second penalty.
There it is.
So the gap now, Van Gisbergen back to Heimgartner, 1.8 seconds. So
down in the suspension area there, maybe something like a tie rod or a power steering. If they've gone in through the top, there's probably something like a power steering issue.
No, guys, actually reporting it's got no brakes at all, and looking at the right front tyre, there was almost flames coming out, so definitely brake-related issue. But I've just been speaking to Mr. Heimgartner, Andre's father, and he said they probably set the tyre pressures a little bit too high for the early part of the race, and given the heat of the battle, that they've just gone over their best.
Yeah, I think Van Gisbergen's might have been at the other end of the spectrum, maybe a little bit on the lower side, just looking at the difference in car speed right now.
Race management, drive-through penalty, car 8, drive-through penalty, car 8.
Just hearing a drive-through penalty for Tim Edgell.
Turn 2, drive-through
number 14 car being moved into the garage, so I don't think we'll see that back out again.
To measure with a drive-through penalty after that incident with Angus Fogg down at turn number 2. On board with Perkins. 4th position, 5 seconds out of the race lead. Pit window opening not too far away. There's Shay Davies doing a great job with the bodged up repair job at the start of this race. A split oil cooler. That was certainly odd when we heard that down on the grid.
Davies also, Jamie, not a supercar co-driver, but had a very busy schedule with Bathurst, and then the Gold Coast in the Carrera Cup, had a win at Bathurst, and that man there on the screen, I wouldn't want to be on the other end of that radio when the engineer radios through and tells him he's got a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, it was just one of those awkward ones. I think he locked up the rears, got it on the grass, and just stared straight into Foggy, who was just an innocent party in that. But the drive-through penalty has been assessed for the Chester's Holden. And Gisbergen's last lap is a 5.0. Heimgartner a 5.3. Davies a 5.4. Perkins a 5.3. So the leaders all lapping within 0.4 of a second of each other. But Van Gisbergen again, consistent pace now that he's got the tyre pressures. I think where he likes them. The last 4 or 5 laps have been in the high 4.9s and a 5.0 on the last one. On board with Van Gisbergen up the hill.
He'll reach about 255, 260 Ks here, back down to third.
Fastest lap of the race, a 104.793.
Good time to be on board then. Down to turn 2, rush security. It's down to 75 Ks. Do a bit of a shift up as they head through goal corner.
Here's the drive-through for Tim Edgell. Van Gisbergen with a 3-second advantage over Andre Heimgartner. Back on board with Van Gisbergen, down towards the BNT hairpin.
Equal slowest corner, 60-odd Ks. Gives the Brer a bit of a wipe. Whack it back up to 5th gear, 215 Ks. Into the Hankook sweeper. Gives it a bit of a wrestle, get round, he says, get round. Tries to get the car as close to that apex as possible. Now accelerate up. Great view, all the apartments full of people.
Last lap was a 4.7, and we've just taken a ride with him on a 5.0.
He slowed down, no, we're on board.
10th of a second quicker than Heimgartner, 6/10ths quicker than Davies and Perkins. There's Robert Van Gisbergen, Shane's dad, looking on. He's had a tumultuous couple of weeks over at Bathurst. Had a quick chat to him on the Sunday night, and obviously they were all pretty devastated.
Car 96, car 96, under investigation for potential breach of start procedure.
Just hearing on race radio, and Pedersen under investigation for a possible breach of starting procedure. So we're looking at that pretty hard. So the pit window's not too far away. Who will go in first? Van Gisbergen with a 3.2 second advantage over Andre Heimgartner. Van Gisbergen to hand over to Simon Evans.
And Van Gisbergen, whilst, you know, had the Bathurst campaign, Gold Coast campaign, he also had some drifting plugged there and there in the middle.
Yeah, World Time Attack at Eastern Creek in Sydney. Simon Evans sitting out waiting for Van Gisbergen to come in and hand over the Smeg Racing Holden.
On lap 20.
Race radio just reminding, pit window open now for the first of the pit stops. First car approaching pit lane heading down towards Mark Pedersen is Mark Gibson in the Blackwood Protector Ford. See if Mark can help us out with some times on here. Gisbergen might stay out a little bit longer because he does have clear track ahead of him. McIntyre in. It looked pretty consistent.
Yeah, it was 13.6 seconds overall. One of the drivers, Matt, was out and Johnny was in just over 4 seconds. So the remainder of the time was just getting the bounce, the radio and everything else done up. But then a very fast stop, that's for sure.
He's pretty slick, Mark. I mean, he didn't have it this year, but he's had V8 supercar co-driver experience for a number of years now. So,
certainly showed then, that's for sure, Shane, because that's one of the fastest exit entries we've seen so far.
He would have learnt a lot from his FPR skidding back on board with Shane Van Gisbergen.
Mark, did I see Campbell Little hanging around the McIntyre pit there at one stage during the day?
I actually saw him earlier today as well, but not sure he's with. But hey, look, we've got the Richard Moore, Tim Slade car coming in. Let's get a time on this one.
Tim Slade to get in.
Driver out.
Very, very fast driver for Walkinshaw Racing in Australia with the Super Cheap Racing colours.
Got the Foggy car coming in as well, guys. It's going to get quite packed here soon.
Well, they've only got a 4-lap pit window to do it. That looked pretty concise from Slade and Moore. A little bit of time to get the car out on track.
18.5 seconds for the Moore Slade changeover.
Well, that was 5 seconds slower than the McIntyre Gibson change.
Look, you know, the guys get in and out of the car, you know, in between 4 and 5 seconds, but it just takes the rest of the time to get everything connected and done up. But definitely the guys that have the drive rate, or one of the pit crew guys helping the driver get in and out, certainly seems to be the quickest way to go.
Tony D'Alberto now at the wheel of the Property Tutors. Holden.
Brent Robb giving the driver assist there.
Tim Edgels come in. Hand it over to Steve Owen, back on board with the race leader.
Well, these guys are in the box seat, and they don't need to do, you know, do anything too tricky. Just take their time. They've obviously got a good car under them. They're going to have a good driver jump back in the car with Simon Evans.
Expect to see this car, and I think this lap. Pit window not too far away from closing. Van Gisbergen with a 3.5 second lead. Heimgartner did take a 10th out of him on the last lap. 105.2 versus a 105.1. Shane Davies was 4 tenths slower than that. Perkins 3 tenths, and Perkins is 8 seconds down the road from this race car.
Here he goes.
Van Gisbergen in. Race leader in for the compulsory pit stop change. Hand over to Simon Evans. They were pretty good in race number 3, even though they got third. They were one of the quicker driver changes. Shane out, Simon in. On board the Smeg Racing Commodore. So far the fastest has been John McIntyre, Mark Gibson. That looked pretty clean, Mark.
Yeah, it certainly did from Evans Van Gisbergen. It was 13.8 seconds, and they lost probably a second and a half, with the pit crew still checking the tyre pressures, but it's probably time well worth spent, that's for sure.
Well, including the outlap, that's the fastest so far by about actually only about a half a second over the McIntyre Gibson Blackwood protector forward. Race leader now, Andre Heimgartner. He will have to hand over to Paul Morris now. Good opening stint from Heimgartner. It was pretty strong in Taupo over the opening weekend of the championship.
He's pushing the window because Morris is obviously not as strong in this car as Andre. Very tricky entrance to pit lane there. If you get that wrong, you've slam dunked a couple of ton concrete block, as Perkins is not far behind.
Chris Hanley's pitted. He's handed over to Gene Rollinson. Heimgartner out. The very tall Paul Morris getting shoehorned into the race seat. They have been up there with some of the faster driver changes, considering the size difference between Andre and Paul. Cam Waters in the background handing over to Mitch Cunningham. Paul's got a problem here. That's taking a little bit of time. Mark, just looked like Paul was maybe having a little issue just getting those belts finally done up.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was 23.4 seconds. And the Murphy car jumped in pit lane, actually. The Murphy stop was 12.8, so
wow, that was
so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you what, Murphy's pounced the whole lot of them, I think.
Yeah, with the in that though, it was still about a second and a half slower than Van Gisbergen and the Gibson car.
He's a good 6-7 seconds up the road, so he's absolutely pounced Heimgartner's car, the number 22 car, in the pit lane.
Heimgartner has lost the better part of 8 or 9 seconds to the likes of the Van Gisbergen car, so a big gain here for Murphy and Perkins. Where does that bring them out in relation to Simon Evans? There's the gap. Simon Evans at the wheel of the Smeg Holden. First time race winner at Taupo. 2 wins against his name now. Shane Van Gisbergen with 6 after Taupo. Of course, first time race winners also Cam Waters and Mitch Cunningham. That was a pretty popular win at the end of a pretty tough weekend from the weather gods. The team's keeping on their toes with multiple tyre and wheel changes from wets to slicks to wets. On board with Evans.
Fascinating journey it was as Evans slips up the inside.
Gene Rollinson. Now behind the wheel of the Fendale Farms Ford.
Great to see Gene back out on the track, and it is only his second ever SuperTourer event.
So a big gain there. Well, actually think about it. Actually, Murphy and Perkins have made a gain. They were 8 seconds down on Van Gisbergen. Perkins was before the pit stop, so they've actually made up 3 seconds, including the outlap. So Murphy's definitely made a big gain. There's the gap, first to second.
That's a very good recovery, to be honest. You know.
Yeah, well, they were 4th and 8 seconds out of the race lead. That gap is down to 5.8, so they've made a 2.2 second gain in that sequence. So it'll be Paul Morris in 3rd, Johnny Reid in 4th. Green light on, co-driver in the car. How many Bathurst winners? When was the last time we had a Bathurst winner race in New Zealand as a guest?
Well, not as a guest. We've got one sitting in 2nd spot at the moment.
You'd have to go back a bit, wouldn't you? Because Murphy, you don't really sort of count as one.
You're testing the history back there, Jamie. I think Mark Pedersen has got someone down there for us.
Shane Van Gisbergen.
Have got Shane here. Shane, that was a blinding first stint.
Yeah, I just wanted to save the tyres for Simon, and Andre came out, he was flying, and I thought, I've seen this one before, and let him go and said see you in 2 laps, and he was D1NZ out of the corners, and sure enough he blew the tyres off it, but just cruised along, and now Simon's in, doing a great job with a good gap, so just got to maintain it to the end and hope for a clean finish.
Pretty relaxed, Shane Van Gisbergen there. That gap's gone out to 6.2 seconds, 105.5 from Evans, 105.9 for Murphy. Fastest lap of the race, 104.793 from Shane Van Gisbergen in his first stint. Battle groups further on behind. This is 5th, 6th and 7th. So Shane Davies and Paul Manuel lost a lot of ground. They were 3rd going in before the pit stops. On board with John McIntyre now at the wheel. 7th place for Johnny Mack in the Blackwood Protector Ford. Chasing down Paul Manuel. How many times have we seen this in the past in the good old days of NZV8s? McIntyre versus Manuel.
Bit of a late step into the corner there for the number 47 car.
Ken Evans half a second quicker than Murphy. 6.7 seconds now is the gap. So Evans leads from Murphy. Paul Morris, Johnny Reid, Tim Slade, Paul Manuel, John McIntyre. It's Manuel and McIntyre. 6th and 7th, Mitch Cunningham in 8th, Steve Owen in 9th in the Chester's Holden. That's a good recovery considering the drive-through.
McIntyre, 37 years old, resides in Nelson. His race team based in Taupo, along with Mark Gibson, 22-year-old.
We got the Barney, number 14, back out on track after a delay in the pits. That's a brake issue. That's
a good effort if it's a brake issue. Obviously wasn't too serious, but what he's probably trying to do here is put a couple of laps on this car and ensure it's going to be good for race 2.
Yeah, Andrew Waite's still back in the car because... Oh, no, Vivani probably in the car. Lights are out. Yeah, doesn't really matter with the compulsory change because the pit window has closed.
It'll just be, you know, put some installation laps on it.
Young Sean did a good job down in Taupo, I thought. John Penny back in the seat. Andrew Waite's got in the car for this weekend. Very experienced. Andrew's done an incredible amount of laps, considering he hasn't been actively racing recently, but it does a lot of laps down at Highlands with all of the services offered down there with the various track days and the rides in the Porsche Cayenne and the Lamborghini Gallardo and Porsche GT3 Cup cars. And he's pairing up with Tony Quinn in the Mosler for the Highlands 101 next weekend.
He's living the dream, isn't he?
Not a bad job, is it?
And then he's up at the snow farm peddling Audis.
Simon Evans last lap, a 6.0. Murphy's just gone quickest for the first time at a 5.7. 5.8 for Morris. 5.5 for Reid. Gap 6.6 seconds. You'd think that's going to be enough with just 4 laps left to go here. It's hard, just over that transition doesn't look as settled as certainly the leading car.
They'll be very pleased. I was talking to Kane Barry, who helps out in this car just before the race, and they weren't prepared to do anything major to it until after the race. They're just running out of time. It's quite a busy schedule with the 2 qualifying sessions. So I think if they finish here in the 2nd spot, they're going to be pretty stoked.
That's a good recovery considering, as I said, they were 4th before the pit stop cycle. Perkins was 8 seconds behind Shane Van Gisbergen. They definitely made some time up in the pit stops. Johnny Reid, they are in the 4th position. The J.A. Russell Ford, likewise, Andre Heimgartner and Pedersen. Outstanding at Bathurst for Super Black Racing. I know Tony Lentino is here this weekend, taking in some of the NZ Super Tourer action.
This is developing to quite a good little battle here, even though we're running out of laps.
Similar lap speed though. Last lap a 5.8 for Morris, a 5.8 for Reid.
Yep.
Murphy's just done a 5.5 to take another couple of tenths out of the race leader, but I think Evans can afford to cruise now. The 5.7 his last lap, Murphy at a 5.5. On board with Murphy. Two very distinctive driving styles, two very different ones between Murphy and Perkins.
Well, he's sitting very, very low in that seat as well, so it's not a height thing, it's just obviously where they're comfortable.
So he's got a comfortable 7-second advantage over Paul Morris. Murph's certainly looking pretty relaxed in there. If he realises he's going to run out of laps to try and get to the Smeg Racing Commodore. Had a tough weekend on the Gold Coast. And another one that had a tough weekend at Bathurst with electrical problems. Here with James Courtney, of course, Walkinshaw Racing, Holden Racing team. So 105.5 for Evans, 105.6, gap is still 6.6 seconds, first to second. Paul Morris, 7 seconds further back in third. Johnny Reid, fourth. He's got the 3-second advantage over Tim Slade. As Jack Perkins looks on, Paul Forgy to his right, team engineer. M3 Racing for Greg Murphy.
It's a bit of a funny story that, Jamie, with Paul Forgy being Murph's engineer. He used to be Marcus Ambrose's engineer in the day when he won those supercar championships, and now Murph's had something to say already about Ambrose coming back to Australia.
He's going to guest at Sydney. That's a big one.
That's great for the category over there. This is back with McIntyre chasing down.
Paul Manuel, there's nothing in that battle. Evans at 105.4, completing lap 28 at 105.7. The gap's out to 7 seconds, back to Murphy. 28 laps complete. They're on lap 29 of 30 for race number 1 for the BNT NZ SuperTourers here at Hampton Downs. The TR Group Waikato 400, the V8 Festival. There's McIntyre down the inside of Manuel.
I don't think he saw him.
He got on the brakes to avoid a collision. You could just see the rear of the car stepping around. That was close.
You can actually defend at this part of the race, or inside the last couple of laps. So you can actually block. Previous to that, you can't. You've got to let him go. Just race. There's Mark Gibson.
Team looking pretty relaxed considering the battle that's on track here right now.
I'm not sure if he was under a light or the sun lamp there.
He's a tailplane boy, mate. Nice and sunny down there. Last lap board's out for Simon Evans. Looking at win number 3. The back of 2 wins and a third. The opening round in Taupo. Like we've seen from Scott McLaughlin in the past, like we've seen from Greg Murphy in the past, this is the dominating car in the championship. We've seen, looking at the onboard shots, familiar things from, similar things from McLaughlin in the past and Greg Murphy, with the car very, very responsive and very, very little wheel input. There's Simon's dad, Owen Evans, looking on. To his right, team engineer Stephen Giles, who's got a big summer coming up, running a whole heap of the new TRS FT50 race cars. Drivers from all over the planet. On board with Evans. Van Gisbergen survived the early challenge from Andre Heimgartner. Handed over to Evans, who made some gains in the pit stops. A big gain for the Murphy Perkins number 1, but it's not going to be enough to deny the Smeg Racing Holden their third win for the 14-15 championship.
Checkered flag has now been
here at Hampton Downs. Greg Murphy crossing the line in second, 7.1 seconds back. Paul Morris in third, paired with Andre Heimgartner. Go back to Johnny Reid and Tim Slade in the Mike Perro number 10. Congratulations, Shane Van Gisbergen, his Techno VIP engineer, Jeff Slater.
Investigation, car 14 at 1-4.
It's the team congratulate each other.
Car 14 under investigation.
It's been a perfect weekend so far. 2 poles and the first heat win for the Evans and Van Gisbergen team. Confirmation of the results. Evan and Van Gisbergen ahead of Murphy and Perkins, looking to get their championship back on track after a pretty tough first round at South Bay. Heimgartner and Morrison third ahead of Pedersen Reid, Moore Slade, Manuel Davies, Gibson McIntyre in seventh ahead of Cunningham Waters, Edgell and Owen, that's a good comeback after a drive through, and Foggins Alberto completing the top 10.